Hello everyone and welcome to today's video. Today we have some very important news for the 2026 U.S. House elections, where key Republican centrist Don Bacon will not be seeking re-election in 2026. He announced on Monday that he will retire at the end of his term. The Nebraska Republican will not seek re-election and plans to retire at the end of his term, according to two people familiar with his plans. The announcement is expected Monday and presents a major pickup opportunity for Democrats. Bacon is a key GOP centrist in the House and represents one of only three Republican-held House districts that Kamala Harris won in the 2024 presidential election. Bacon has met frequently with Nebraska's State Senator Brett Lidstrom in recent months, who Bacon allies view as the favorite to win the GOP primary to fill the seat. But Republicans widely believe Douglas County Sheriff Aaron Hansen has a better chance of winning the primary, and he's spoken with GOP operatives about this race. So this is very big for the 2026 House of Representatives elections. This is my last video. I did a prediction for the House where I had Democrats winning 220 House seats to Republicans 215. And one of them I had flipping was Nebraska's 2nd District, now that Don Bacon retired. Resetting the map to the consensus ranking, we still have Nebraska's 2nd as one of the most competitive races in 2026. Pulling up now the House race in Nebraska, it's very interesting, this move, and certainly is one the Democrats are going to love to hear. Don Bacon has been the Republican representative from the 2nd District, which covers parts of Omaha, including all of Douglas County, home to the city of Omaha, Saunders County, and parts of western Sarpy County, including Gretna and Springfield. And right now, with Don Bacon officially not running, opens the door for the Democrats at trying to flip this district. As the article mentioned, Republican Brett Lidstrom, former state senator, candidate for the district in 2012, and candidate for governor in 2022, is viewed by Don Bacon as the next Republican to run for this district. But as the article mentioned, Aaron Hansen, the Douglas County Sheriff, is viewed by many as the Republican most likely to win the primary. Two other Republicans, Dan Frey and Patrick Gilcoyne, are viewed as other potential Republican candidates. On the Democratic side, there are already 4 Democrats that have announced their intention to run for this race. Evangelos Aragakis, John Kavanaugh, state senator from the 9th District and son of former U.S. Representative John J. Kavanaugh from Nebraska. So he has a very well-known family name that could help him in a Democratic primary and maybe in a general election. Mark Johnston, Denise Powell are also running as well. 2 other Democrats or potential candidates are Crystal Rhodes, a Douglas County District Court clerk, and Tony Velland, a former professional football player. Tony Vargas, who is the nominee for this district in 2022 and 2024, is not running again and has actually endorsed Denise Powell in this race. It should be worth noting, John Kavanaugh has the endorsements of former Nebraska Senator Bob Kerrey and Ben Nelson, as well as 8 state senators, whereas Denise Powell has the endorsement of Dunixi Gorcera, Margot Jerez, and, as I mentioned, Tony Vargas. Another key one to keep an eye out for is Dan Osborne, the independent Senate candidate from 2024, who has expressed interest in potentially running for this seat in 2026. However, the thought process was Don Bacon would be hard to beat, so if he were to run, a lot of the Democrats may stay out of the race and throw their support behind Osborne and have the best chance of winning. Now that Don Bacon is not running, the Democrats likely feel they have a better chance of winning, so I'd imagine Democrats will run in this race and not steer clear for Osborne in this scenario. As for the political predictions, now one of the predictions, Sabado Crystal Ball, has updated this race, obviously just announced the news. Sabado Crystal Ball now has the race listed as lean Democrat for a flip. Inside elections from back in March and Cook Politico from February had as a toss-up tilts are. I expect their rankings to be updated any day now as well. The election results here, I'm going to pull up Nebraska's election results. This was back in 2022. Where in the 2nd District, Tony Vargas lost to Don Bacon 51.3 to 48.7%. And again, only 3 counties are in this district. The largest by far is Douglas County. Bacon won Sarpy and Saunders counties. But Omaha, this is where Douglas County is, went for Vargas over Bacon 51 to 49, roughly about 5,000 net vote win for Vargas over Bacon in this county back in 2022. Back in 2024, obviously the election that just happened, this district, which was very close at the presidential level as well, voted for Kamala Harris over Donald Trump by about 5 points, roughly about 15,000 vote win for Kamala Harris in that district. In the House race, in this one, Don Bacon won by 1.9%, winning by about 6,000 votes, and a very similar map to what it was in 2022. Tony Vargas won 52 to 48 over Don Bacon. Meanwhile, we saw Saunders go 76-24 and Sarpy 66-34. And the main thing to watch for now, given the population size of Douglas County, is this is a key for 2026. Whoever the Republicans nominate, can they match the percentages of Douglas County, where even though Vargas won it, winning it by 4 points and a net 10,000 votes, the margins were not enough when Saunders County's 7,000 vote margin and Sarpy County's roughly 9,000 vote margins came in, was enough for Bacon to win. For 2026, we're watching the margins in Douglas County and the overall margins in Sarpy and in Saunders counties. Also worth noting, it'll be a midterm election environment, so voter turnout will not be as high as 2024, and that may also help the Democrats' chances in this election. Right now, for my own personal predictions for this race, I would have it currently started out as lean Democrat. I do think the Democrats now are poised to win this seat, and a large reason being, according to the Kirk Political Voting Index, this district, even though it was listed as even in 2023, is now moved to Democrat +3 in 2025. So this is a lean Democratic district on the Cook PVI side of things. The only reason it stayed red was incumbent Don Bacon has been able to hold on to this race. But now with Bacon not in the race, you would assume it starts out in the lean Democratic category. Also worth noting that the 2026 generic ballot is currently Democrat +2.3. And we can look at 2024, where Bacon won it, the House went to the Republican by about 3 points nationally. 2022, it also went to the Republicans by about 3 points nationally. 2020 was the last time it was a Democrat won House. Democrats won by about 3 points. Bacon won here by about 4.6%. But again, now the district's been redrawn a little bit, and Bacon will not be on the ballot in 2026. So this is a very important race to watch for 2026. And as I mentioned at the start of the video, but I'll just rehash again here, for the Democrats to win the House of Representatives in 2026, they only need to flip 3 seats to their category that Republicans currently hold. Now, with the 2nd District in Nebraska potentially being a Democratic flip, if the Democrats can win this district, that means they only need to flip 2 House seats to their side to get the majority. So this retirement of Don Bacon is certainly bad news for the Republicans, good news for the Democrats, and puts the Democrats 1 seat closer to winning the House back in 2026. I hope you enjoyed this video. Make sure to like and subscribe if you did. Leave a comment below, tell me your thoughts, and hope to see you in a future video. Hello everyone, and welcome to today's video. Today I'm going over the news that Dusty Johnson will officially announce a bid for South Dakota governor. Representative Dusty Johnson, according to the article from Politico, will announce a bid for South Dakota governor on Monday, according to 2 people granted anonymity to speak about their private conversations. Johnson, who has served as South Dakota's sole House of Representatives since 2019, has been a key player in major deals on Capitol Hill in recent years as the head of the Main Street Caucus of the Republicans. Johnson, long expected to mount a bid for higher office, will make the announcement in Sioux Falls. Johnson is the 8th House Republican to announce a run for higher office in 2026. Representative Andy Biggs of Arizona, Byron Donalds of Florida, Randy Feenstra of Iowa, John James of Michigan, John Rose of Tennessee are also seeking governor offices, while Representatives Andy Barr of Kentucky, Buddy Carter of Georgia have announced Senate runs. So this is pretty big news for South Dakota, where this election right now, the way things stand, there are 2 Republicans running, with Toby Doden, a retail and real estate executive, and John Hanson, the Speaker of the South Dakota House of Representatives, is running, as well as a running mate with him, Carla Lems, as well. With this announcement pending for Dusty Johnson, Johnson will be entering this race. It should also be worth noting the current incumbent governor of South Dakota, Larry Roden, has publicly expressed interest in running. Tony Van Hoosen, the lieutenant governor of South Dakota, is also viewed as a potential candidate. I don't think he would run if Larry Roden were to enter this race, but of course you never really know. The early polling that's been done so far, there's one poll from Mason-Dixon polling back in the middle of April that showed in this election, Dusty Johnson starts out with a narrow lead at 28% over Larry Roden's 27%. So a statistically basically tied race, only a 1-point difference here, but a very close race to start out. 27% of the vote saying they were undecided. Marty Jackley in 3rd place with 18%, John Hanson 2%, Toby Doden 4%. So certainly this is very, very interesting here starting out. Seems that Johnson and Larry Roden would start out as the 2 main candidates in this race for how this all could go down. What's interesting to watch for is the decision of Dusty Johnson and Larry Roden if they both do decide to run. Obviously, I expect Larry Roden to enter this race. Once Larry Roden does and Dusty Johnson are both in this race, do we see any of that undecided 20% vote and future polling go to one candidate or the other, or is this going to remain a very tight primary going into the general election? Because let's face it, South Dakota is a very Republican state, so the general election probably won't be that competitive. So what happens here is going to be the most important part of things right now. So far, Robert Arnold, a college student, is the only Democratic candidate declared running. Cook Politico, Inside Elections, and Sabla Crystal Ball all have the state listed as solid Republican, and it's really not too much of a surprise. South Dakota in 2024 voted for Donald Trump by 29 points at the presidential level. The governor's race in 2022, Kristi Noem was able to win it by 26.8%, so a very safe Republican state in 2022. 2018, it actually was very competitive. Kristi Noem only won it by 3.4%. So it's possible South Dakota can have competitive governor elections, though I'd expected much more to be like 2022 than to be like 2018. Johnson, just for his own electoral history here, Johnson won by 44 points in 2024, 55 points in 2022, and 62 points in 2020. 2018, Johnson won by 24.3%. And before that, Kristi Noem actually represented South Dakota at large. So this is expected to be a safe district overall, or a safe race overall. My most recent governor prediction that I did, I gave South Dakota safe for the Republicans, and I will be keeping that for the purpose of today's video and this prediction as well. But I thought this news was very interesting. Make sure to leave a comment below, tell me your thoughts about this news. Thanks so much for watching. Hope to see you in a future video. Hello everyone and welcome to today's video. A few days ago I did a video talking about Nate Morris entering the Kentucky Senate race for 2026. Today's video I have some more news about Morris that also could potentially play a very important role in this Senate race to replace Mitch McConnell. So an article on Fox News, it begins by saying, Republican businessman and entrepreneur Nate Morris, the newly announced Senate candidate in the 2026 Senate race to succeed retiring former longtime GOP Senate leader Mitch McConnell, will team up with a top ally of President Trump. Morris, who is showcasing his political outsider credentials and his support for Trump's Make America Great Again movement, will be joined at a campaign event just south of Louisville, Kentucky on Monday morning by conservative leader Charlie Kirk. Charlie Kirk, who runs Turning Point USA, who is known to be a top President Trump ally and surrogate. The news was first shared with Fox News on Friday. Kirk, a MAGA world rock star and ally of Trump and the president's eldest son, Donald Trump Jr., leads the influential Turning Point USA youth organization. It's likely that Kirk, who has praised Morris, will endorse him when the two team up on the campaign trail on Monday. I'm recording just about a day before that, so I won't know that news at the time of this recording, but I do expect that will happen. Morris joins Representatives Andy Barr and former Kentucky Attorney General and 2023 gubernatorial nominee Daniel Cameron in the race for the Republican Senate nomination in the red-leaning state. The GOP nomination, which will be decided in next spring's Kentucky primary, will likely turn into a referendum on McConnell in a battle for Trump support. A campaign release announcing Morris's candidacy described him as, quote, a staunch ally of President Trump who would be a warrior for the America First agenda in the Senate. Morris declared his candidacy during an interview on Triggered, a popular podcast hosted by Donald Trump Jr. He is also a personal friend of Vice President J.D. Vance. Morris had been a long leading voice in Kentucky this year in his criticism of McConnell, who has long been a top GOP Trump antagonist. He pilloried McConnell, who stepped down from the Senate GOP leadership position for the Senator's vote against top Trump cabinet nominees, and he blasted Barr and Cameron, who was once seen as McConnell prodigy, for not aggressively criticizing the senator for his votes. McConnell announced on his 83rd birthday in February he would not seek re-election next year. McConnell held the seat since 1985 as his longest-serving senator in Kentucky history. And the article continues on more, but for the sake of today's video, that's all I really want to discuss on that front. So this is very interesting here, and you can kind of see what I'm setting up. Andy Barr, Daniel Cameron, and Nate Morris are now running in this race. And you can clearly see Nate Morris is trying to set up the dynamic of him being the Make America Great Again candidate, and that he's the only one that's going to be really loyal to President Trump. And Daniel Cameron and Andy Barr both having ties in some way to Mitch McConnell, Morris is going to use that in his campaign. And it's not that they're the only three candidates. Michael Ferris is also running. Wendy Kennedy, Jacob Trimble could be running. Scott Jennings, the CNN political analyst, has also expressed interest in potentially running in this race. But Nate Morris is trying to get the MAGA lane of the Republican primary down and onto his side. Andy Barr already has the endorsement of Hal Rogers, Steve Scalise, and Elise Stefanik. Stefanik being a very top ally of President Trump, I do believe Steve Scalise is as well. But Nate Morris is clearly making a push here to get the MAGA wing and the MAGA nomination. But Morris also starts out in the early polling data very, very low. There's a lot of undecided vote left, around 36% in the most recent McLaughlin and Associates poll from back in the middle of April, but Daniel Cameron had a clear lead over this primary. Cameron had 44%, Andy Barr 18%. Nate Morris starts out with 2. And my first thought when reading this is not too dissimilar to the 2022 Republican Ohio Senate primary, where J.D. Vance did not start out with a lot of support in that primary, and President Trump endorsing him catapulted him to the primary nomination, where Vance still won a very close primary. Now, Nate Morris is starting out at 2%, but with 36% of the vote undecided, there's certainly a lot of wiggle room to jump up if President Trump were to endorse him. And that's why we see Nate Morris doing events with Charlie Kirk, announcing his candidacy on the Kentucky or on Donald Trump Jr.'s podcast, and trying to position himself this way in Kentucky. Nate Morris is definitely trying to get President Trump's endorsement in this race, because he'll likely know that if he runs a race without President Trump's endorsement, he may be able to do well and get his numbers up, but it's more likely one of Cameron or Barr would be the Republican nominee, given how much of a head start they have on name recognition in the state of Kentucky, where Morris doesn't really have as much name recognition of them. But if Nate Morris were to get President Trump's endorsement, that would be a big boost to him and would likely catapult him either to the frontrunner status or just a bit behind Daniel Cameron. That's why when you see Morris doing events with Donald Trump Jr. and Charlie Kirk, I'm sure they probably would recommend or say a kind word about Morris to President Trump about endorsing Nate Morris in this race, and for him to be the next Republican senator who will be loyal to President Trump to replace Mitch McConnell in the Senate, who Mitch McConnell has had his vocal spats with President Trump multiple times. So it's an interesting conversation here. As for the general election, there's really not too much to talk about other than Pamela Stevenson, the minority leader of the Kentucky House of Representatives, is running, and she was the nominee for Attorney General in 2023. But Kentucky is such a Republican state, it's going to be solid Republican no matter what, according to all the political prediction websites. Kentucky in 2024 voted for Donald Trump by about 30.5% at the presidential level. At the Senate level, it voted for Rand Paul in 2022 by 23.5%. 2020, it voted for Mitch McConnell by about 19.5%. So at the presidential and Senate level, it's definitely a safe Republican state and will be regardless in 2026. But which Republican actually represents Kentucky after 2026 may be a very big topic for President Trump that he wants to try and get right. It's also worth noting that President Trump's going to spend a lot of time in Kentucky the next year or so going after U.S. Representative Thomas Massie, trying to Republican primary challenge him. It could be worth noting Trump being in Kentucky so much trying to do that, he may weigh into the Senate race as well, as he already will have a reason being there and testing his political prowess. Maybe he does so for the Senate race as well. I hope you enjoyed this video. Make sure to hit like and subscribe if you did. Leave a comment below, tell me your thoughts, and I hope to see you in a future video.